Every year I know we gonna go hard. We been that team ever since Bart started. All my cheese heads go pack go. Ain't showing no mercy, cutting no slack, no. I ain't a bad sport and I'll even wish you good luck. Only thing I will.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome into Lombardi's Legends podcast. I am Wags. Joining me as always is Dane, and it is Saturday morning as we are live and recording here as we prepare for, I can't believe I'm saying this, Dane, the regular season finale of the NFL season, and the Packers hosting our most hated rival to the South, the Chicago Bears, in a game that doesn't really mean a heck of a whole lot for either team, aside from it's still a rivalry. So, Dane, we'll touch on that here briefly. But I think, first of all, how are you doing? How are you feeling about how this team is shaping up as we get started here in just 1 week to look ahead to a possible playoff run?
Yeah, Happy New Year, buddy. I'm looking forward to the first of how many? Hopefully 5 victories in a row for the Packers to wrap up the 2024-2025 season. That's my hope. I can't believe it's week 18 either. I swear every year the season flies by. You blink, it's August. You blink again, it's like week 5. And here we are, it's week 18. So super excited to talk Packer Bears. But really just talking even broader than that. I know the Packers have some injuries that maybe I think some of these guys might normally play that aren't going to play. So maybe let's just, I mean, are you cool just going right into what do you think is going to happen with this Packers team in week 18? I don't see Jordan Love playing 4 quarters. Do you?
No, and we were just talking very briefly before we went live here. I think at most you're going to see probably 1/2 for Jordan Love and most of the key starters on both sides of the football. They're going to have to play guys like the offensive line might get the majority of the game. There's only so many players that can sit out in a regular season game. This isn't like the preseason where you've got the expanded rosters and can just kind of sit everyone. That said, I think even though the Packers could potentially move up into a 6th seed, I look at that as being somewhat interchangeable. I know there's people out there that will argue and say, Wags, what are you talking about? You would much rather play the Rams, and then you potentially don't have to go play the number 1 seed if you're able to survive and advance that game. Look, they're going to have to go on the road if they want to make a run into the Super Bowl and win 3 games on the road, no matter what scenario plays out. And the reality is I'm not going to put a lot of faith into trying to go all out and rely on the Dallas Cowboys to beat the Washington Commanders. I don't know if Commanders will be going all out to try to play all their starters the entire 4 quarters either. But to me, it doesn't matter. It's just the risk is not worth the potential, very slim potential of the reward. So I think we're going to see some rest for Jordan Love, for Josh Jacobs, for Rashawn Gary, and for a few other key players on both sides of the football, Dan.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, that's the thing is don't tell me that the Packers will be too rusty because Jordan Love only played 2 or 3 quarters, right? Instead of a full when they're turning around and playing next week again, no matter what. So that's where I'm at. Either way, they're going on the road. Either way, they're playing teams that are talented enough to be in the playoffs. It's what it is. The Packers beat the Rams. They had a close game loss on the road week 1 against an Eagles team where the Packers and Eagles are just different teams at this point. So whoever they end up playing, it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a fight, and it's going to be, can the Packers minimize mistakes and play up to the brand of football that we expect them to? That's the end game, I think, for this one.
Yeah, I say, Dane, that Jordan Love only gets a series or 2. We'll see what actually happens, but I don't know. The Packers have won a few games with Malik Willis under center, and what better way to really stick it to the Bears than to extend this streak? They're gonna the starting and resting key players is not, and trying to win the game are not two mutually exclusive things. Don't get me wrong, Packers and everyone on that side of the ball is going to be doing everything they can to win with the guys that they have out there. And sneakily, I mean, honestly, I couldn't write a better script than for Malik Willis come in and play a majority of this game and lead the Packers to yet another victory over Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, would it not be the most Bears thing ever for them to somehow beat the Packer backups and then talk about the Williams hype, talk about how they beat the streak? I mean, it went into Lambeau. I see it writing itself, but the reality is the Bears have nothing to play for, and the Packers have a ton out in front of them still. So whatever happens, I agree. I mean, I'm definitely not advocating for Josh Jacobs to even wear shoulder pads this Sunday, if I'm being honest with you. I'm good with some of these guys if they're even a little banged up, not playing. We already saw 5 guys are determined to be out. Zane Anderson's out. Quay's not going to be playing. There's some really talented guys that aren't playing. Evan Williams isn't playing this week, but I have a feeling some of those guys, if this was playoffs this week, might be able to go, but Packers are holding them out, understandably so. I think the big picture is the eye is on the prize next week. So hopefully the Packers win a game at Lambeau. It's always better to get a win than a loss. I'd like them to get another W before hitting the playoffs, if I'm being totally blunt, even if it's primarily with backups, because the reality is some of these guys that we call quote unquote backups are still guys that are massive contributors to this team. I want to see them playing well. But really the eye is going to be on the prize going on to the following week. That's for certain.
Okay. Well, with that said, we will still give X Factor score predictions at the very end of this podcast. But Dane, let's kind of take a step back and really more assess the question that I had at the top. How this team's shaping up headed for the playoffs here in a week. We got the news that Jair Alexander had a surgical procedure, likely out for the season. I think the writing was on the wall. We talked about this a few weeks ago. What does it mean if Ja doesn't come back in any of the last couple of regular season games? And I think we both said the longer it goes without him coming back at that point in time, the less likely it is that he's going to play or that it's going to be meaningful or impactful playing. So, if anything, I think, hopefully they did the right thing here. And even if it means Jair Alexander doesn't return this season, I don't know that trying to bring him back in the middle of a playoff run was going to be worth it, even if that was a very slim potentiality. So, Dane, we'll have the off season to talk about whether Jair Alexander is going to continue his career as a Packer in 2025, 26. For the time being, what is the impact for this year's team and what it could mean for a deep playoff run?
Well, I mean, this is a Packers team that's won a lot of games without Jair this year. That's just a blunt assessment. And some of the best defensive games we've seen this season were over the last few weeks, this Vikings game notwithstanding. And that was without Jair. At a certain point, injury, you almost need to know who you got and who you don't got going into some of these games so you can game plan and you can scheme. And I would argue it's better for Ja to just be out now than for him to play 7 or 10 snaps. And then we don't have a guy up and now you're shuffling guys around. I think the key here is, can Evan Williams get healthy? The key here is, can Bullard get back at the slot, right, where he's much better suited, I think, at this stage in his career than at the safety position. Can they get those guys back and in prime position? That is going to be the key, I think, for this Packers team going forward. Now, does it hurt that Ja's not full go? Of course. Jair Alexander, when healthy, is cornerback 1. But Jair also hasn't been really healthy in quite a while, and this Packers team has managed to win a lot of games. The question now becomes, can they beat really good playoff teams on the road with this defense without Jair Alexander? I think they can. And now we have an opportunity to game plan, knowing who very likely we're going to have going forward, going into the playoff run. So it's disappointing. Of course, we wish he was out there and he had the talent, his skill set out there, but we're going to go out there and we're going to have Stokes and we're going to have Carrington Valentine, who's becoming a really blossoming young player at cornerback. We're going to have Kayshawn Nixon. We're going to have Bullard, right? We're going to have, X and Evan Williams, hopefully in the back end. And I think that they can make a good run.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I'm not saying Evan Williams is a better player than Jair Alexander, but you could argue that structurally he might mean more for this year's defense than even, dare I say, Jair, I thought, was playing really good football early this season before he got hurt. So again, I know that might get misconstrued. I'm not saying that Evan Williams right now is a better player than Jair Alexander, but just everything slides into place with Evan Williams out there. You said it. Bullard is more comfortable. All of a sudden, Keyshawn kicks to the outside. Everything kind of just slots in, and they can cover up a little bit. They've done it without shot. To your point, so I think it's going to be interesting. Even getting Quay back potentially for the playoffs could be huge. The way that Edwin Cooper is looking right now, my goodness, the Packers have probably the best run defense I've seen out of a Green Bay defense in years. And with Edwin Cooper flying around out there and the way that he shoots the gaps, I think we said it. It's just with getting him and Quay out there. I know Quay struggled early this season. We talked about how nice it would be to see them out there at the same time, with Quay playing some of his better football right before he got hurt. And we got about a quarter to be able to see that. And if anything, I think Edwin Cooper is playing better and better. So it would be phenomenal to see if this is a Packer defense that can actually hang its hat on having a strength, dare I say, a strength of stopping the run in the playoffs. That could potentially spell some challenges for opposing offenses that we haven't traditionally seen over the last 10, 15 years as Packer fans. So forget about worrying so much about the secondary. We're going to be facing some darn good pass offenses every week, no matter how far we advance. There's not a pass offense that we'll face that isn't going to be very, very good. So I like the idea of being able to go into any matchup and say, well, you're going to have to pass the football because our run defense is stout. And by the way, we're going to be able to get after the quarterback a little bit because that's picking up as well.
Yeah, and that's the next question I had for you is that pass rush. We've seen some inconsistencies from the pass rush. Last week was a little maddening. But we've also seen a lot of different guys stepping up at key moments and making plays. We've highlighted N.A. Barre being really good this year. I think Brenton Cox Jr. is having a second half to really contend with here since the Preston Smith trade. And he's somebody who's banged up. He's questionable, but he's going to be good to go, certainly for the playoff run. So, how concerned should we be about this pass rush? Because, Wags, I'm telling you, I think that if we can get different contributions from different guys in key moments, which we've seen them be able to do for certain stretches, along with a healthy back end, this is a defense that nobody wants to face. That's honestly what I believe. But How concerned should we be about this pass rush right now?
I think there should be some concern. I will say this, though. Those two words, or that phrase of just getting guys healthy in the back end of this defense. Evan Williams getting out there. I mean, dare I say, even though he's not going to be a regular part of this defense, Zane Anderson, just from a depth standpoint, Bullard being able to slot into his more natural position, Quay, not necessarily, known as really great against the pass, although he can get his hands on the football from his spot over the middle. These are things that can open up a lot more tangible options for how to pass rush. So I know it's just easy to sit here as fans and say, well, why doesn't defensive coordinator blitz more? He's got to send more pressure. It's hard to do when you've got two starters in the secondary, or three really, that are out, and you're not able to cover up as much, and you kind of have to be a little bit more, I think, dare I say, conservative with what you're doing with some of your looks and what you're going to do to send guys. Quay Walker is very good at rushing the quarterback from the second level. Edwin Cooper is very good. So now the defense has to account for two guys at the second level that can shoot gaps if Quay Walker is back out there. So that has another dimension. Ultimately, I think when Evan Williams was healthy, we started to, right after that Preston Smith trade, we started to see this pass rush have some of its best performances of the season back to back to back. Yes, we need to see that consistently on an every week basis. And last week was an example where that inconsistency showed up. But we also didn't have very many guys healthy in the secondary, and so that can that can have an impact. We can't sit here. You can talk about next man up all you want, but if you're missing some key guys that are part of really getting after the quarterback, that's going to have downstream impact, and I think that's what we were seeing. So with health, I'm a little bit more optimistic, but certainly we're going to have to do some things to get better performances from our edge guys. Gary needs to be consistently getting after the quarterback, and unfortunately, that just hasn't been the case. Luke Van Ness has shown some flashes, but hasn't consistently been getting that pressure. So those guys are going to have to step up. Devontae Wyatt's going to have to continue to get pressure up the middle and win some of those matchups. If we're able to do that on a semi-consistent basis, I'm going to be a lot more optimistic for what we can see out of this pass rush and out of this defense as a whole for the rest of the way.
Wags, I love it. And you know, forgive us folks for not talking too much about Packer Bears this week, other than, you know, it is what it is. But, you know, we are looking ahead. One thing I do want to look back, though, on the year before the year wraps up, now that we are in week 18, throwing a curveball at you. Wags, who have you been most impressed with? Name a guy, offense, defense, whatever. I'm just kind of curious. I know it's a loaded question. There's so many guys, but is there anybody that's just like totally just stuck out to you this year from this Packer team?
This whole season, how could you not say Tucker Kraft? I mean, like that's kind of a no-brainer to me. There's other guys for sure that and I'll give you the floor and you can rattle off you know, half the roster and mention everyone if you want. But it's tough. Tucker Kraft. I'm stealing your man. We came into the season thinking this could be a breakout year for Luke Musgrave. He came into the year hurt and tried to battle through injury. He's back now. Certainly is not getting a ton of snaps yet, and is going to be in a secondary role regardless at this point with what Tucker Kraft's doing out there. But he's a tone setter on the offensive side of the ball, not just as a receiver, as a tight end, but he's mauls people blocking. So how many times are we seeing Josh Jacobs being able to make a cut on an inside run because Tucker Kraft is just blowing up someone on the edge? You can't underrate what this guy means to this offense, and I've been so impressed with what he's done in year 2.
It's great. Yeah. I mean, you're spot on. It's Kraft, and I think it's Josh Jacobs. And the reason right now of course it's Josh Jacobs, right? But folks need to remember, going into when Packers signed Josh in free agency, there was, well, is he done? There was a lot of people wondering, oh, is he done? You know, 2022 is a long time ago. He had a bad 2023. All Josh Jacobs has done is become really the focal point of this offense. Week in, week out, he gets the touches, he carries the load, he moves forward, he moves piles forward. The offensive line's been tremendous, but Josh Jacobs individually, his catching the ball out of the backfield, all the just stuff, he's added such a dynamic presence to this offense, and is, I think, really lighting the load for other guys across the offense. So I love the Tucker Kraft. I agree. And Josh Jacobs really is my other guy who's just been nothing short of a tremendous signing, both on and off the field, right? He's a guy who his personality just bleeds through. I think this offense is kind of a tough guy who loves to play the game.
Yeah. And I think you could name some of the other guys at safety. You know, Xavier McKinney with what he's done to really shore up the safety position, along with Evan Williams, Javon Bullard, those guys as rookies. That, you know, they each battled injuries. Bullard to a lesser extent, a bit this year, but man, that's been remarkable to see what they've been able to do. You could argue that we're pretty thin at corner, even with when Jair was out there. But with the way that our safeties have played this year, that's really covered up a lot in the secondary. So, but we don't need to go through the exercise of, as I was joking, naming everyone on this roster, Dane. All right. Well, anything else that you're looking ahead to, Dane, as we kind of set ourselves up for this playoff run? We don't know all of the seeding scenarios yet. Certainly, Vikings and Lions are playing for a number one seed, which is kind of amazing to think about. Um, I don't know if you have a rooting interest in that game or just let the chips fall where they may, Dane, or what are your thoughts? Most likely, I think it's fair to say that most likely the Packers are going to be heading to Philadelphia next week. What are your thoughts on that? Philly, we saw them all the way back in week 1 in Brazil. Two different teams, I think, at this point, but a lot of the same, matchups that we talked about headed into that week. So not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but just general thoughts about the Packers heading to Philadelphia for the wild card weekend.
Yeah, I mean, my 30,000 foot is that their strength running the ball is our defensive strength this season, stopping the run. So I feel more confident right now than I would have at any point in the last 10 years, probably as a Packers fan, in stopping the run. And that's not to say Barkley's not a beast. He's obscene, right? 2,000-yard rusher. But there's that. And the only other thing, because I haven't scouted the Eagles in quite a while, is just Jalen Hurts hasn't played meaningful football in about a month by the time the Packers would be playing him. So is there rust there that the Packers would be able to exploit? And, not clear. Now, I have to look at the rest, and we'll do a full breakdown, before whoever the Packers play next week for a playoff game. But those are my two top lines. Barkley's ridiculous. Jalen Hurts has some dust maybe he's going to have to kick off. And can the Packers defense rise to the occasion?
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, Dane, then let's jump into it. Let's do some X Factor score predictions and wrap this thing up here for a Saturday. I'll let you lead off. Who do you have for your first X Factor here this week, Dane?
Well, I agree that I think that we're not going to see all the starters. We're going to see some guys less than normal. They might, get some series, but not play too much. I called it last week, and he didn't have a lot on the stats, but from a pro football focus standpoint, he was really highly rated. So let's go and let's get him in the end zone this week. Bo Melton, wide receiver for the Packers. I think he's going to get an extended look again this week. And I think he's getting in the end zone. He's a speedster. He's going to break one against the Bears. Bo Melton's my offensive guy.
I love it. I'm going to do a recall. I mentioned Malik Willis way back when, I think 2011. We had a backup quarterback by the name of Matt Flynn that came in and meaningless, which was back then, week 17 was the last week of the regular season. All he did was set a Packers single game record for most passing yards and threw 5 touchdowns and a win over Detroit in a quote unquote meaningless home finale in late December. I was there that day. Shout out to our good friend T.O. Hooked us up with the tickets, and we're treated to quite a offensive spectacle unexpectedly in that one. So I don't think this is going to be a offensive spectacle no matter what, but I'm going to go with Malik Willis. And is this an opportunity for Malik to really just continue to solidify the fact that not only is he actually a quality backup quarterback in this league, is there a chance that he plays his way into having enough value to be a trade chip and or get a contract and compete for a starting position somewhere else, and the Packers could get that level of a performance. He's got 3 games on tape that he showed. I think he'll get an extended look this week. So for that reason, individually and for the team, I'm going to go with Malik Willis as my offensive X factor.
Love the choice. And man, I'll tell you what, when the Packers gave up a 7th round pick to get Malik Willis at the end of camp, I will be the first to admit, did they really need to give up that pick? Did they really need to? There's other guys out there. Boy, was I wrong. Was Goody right? Because Willis, everything you said is accurate. And you're right. He might be parlaying himself into a nice opportunity down the road, and good for him. He's been awesome in Green Bay. The guys love him. So I love the choice, Wags, as your offensive X factor, Malik Willis. Defensively, who do you got? I want to give you the floor.
Oh, man. You know what? I'm going to go with Kingsley Enagbare. I think he's going to get a lot of snaps this week. And I think he's going to get a couple sacks. Let's get after it, man. I'd love to see Barre. He's someone that when he gets an opportunity to pressure the quarterback, good things happen. That football tends to pop out. So if Barre can sneak in there, get a sack or two, maybe jar that football loose, all of a sudden, maybe a tight game, Malik Willis marches down, gets the winning touchdown to seal things and extend the streak against the Bears. I'm going to go right into my score prediction right off of the X Factor. And the Packers taking care of business 23-17 over Chicago, winning this home finale on the backs of my X Factors, JJ Enagbare and Malik Willis.
I love it, Wags. We're doing it here. This is awesome. I'm looking at score predictions in the chat. Wayne, 45-14 Packers. I would love that, Wayne. I would love that. 27-12 from Goppy. And where's Kevin's? I saw Kevin's in here somewhere too. Where are you at, Kev? I'm looking. 34-17 Pack. I love it. My defensive X Factor is a guy who messed with the Bears quite a bit last year, Lucas Van Ness. We need him to get hot. We need him to put together a big game at some point. Would I rather him put it together in the wild card game? Absolutely. But it would be nice for him to get something rolling starting this week. Yes, Lucas Van Ness is going to be my defensive X Factor. Go get after the quarterback, young man. Go do your thing. Poke the ball out. And my score prediction, I'm close to you, Wags, 27-17. I think it's one of those games where the Packers take care of business, just play good football. It's going to be fun at Lambeau Field. The last game, no matter what, at Lambeau Field, or very likely no matter what at Lambeau Field for the season. So have fun out there. If you're going to the game, be safe. And we just love this team. It's going to be an awful lot of fun. And we're going to be back next week, of course, talking Packers versus whoever the heck they're going to be playing in the wild card matchup.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for today. Thanks to everyone for jumping in and joining along in the chat and for joining us all season long. As you said, Dame, we'll be back next week to preview the wild card matchup with Green Bay on the road against probably Philadelphia, but we'll know for sure by this time, probably tomorrow night. So, or I'm sorry, not this time. It's about 9 p.m. tomorrow night. We'll know for sure. So, all right. Thanks, everyone. Be legendary. And as always, go Pack, go.
Pack, go.
Every year I know we gonna go hard. We been that team ever since Bart started. All my cheese heads go Pack, go. Ain't show with no mercy, cutting no slack, no. I ain't a bad sport and I'll even wish you good luck. Only thing I will